Welcome in, everyone, to the Lucky Shots podcast. I am Ricky Larson, and I am joined today by Ben Burns and Jacob Montesano. We're just going to kind of talk about fantasy draft analysis, where players are going to go, where we would take them, and kind of just, where they're supposed to be. So if you're watching on YouTube, the show is also on various podcasting areas. We will have all of those links in the end of the show. But if you are listening and you would rather watch and experience kind of the show and see what's going on, you can hop over to YouTube at Lucky Shots Media. So without further ado, let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
All right, so we'll start off with some news. Something I saw the other day that was kind of interesting. The Falcons, their team is 100% fully vaccinated for COVID-19. A lot of teams are trying to get to that kind of area of everybody being 100% vaxxed. Do you guys think it's... Because some teams are like requiring everybody to be vaccinated. Do you think that's kind of too far of a push, or...
Well, I think, with this year, it's going to be a little bit different because of the penalties that the team could have if, an unvaccinated player tests positive. Teams could end up forfeiting games. So I think with whatever your opinion is on getting vaccinated or not, with the Falcons being 100% vaccinated, you can't help but think that gives them some sort of advantage.
Right.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation if you have to require vaccines, because any kind of vaccine is never required.
Right.
So obviously there's a little bit of an unprecedented situation, so I think it's a little difficult. And I can understand people being upset. I can understand people being upset in both ways. Like, why aren't you being vaccinated, and why are you forcing it on it? So it's a little difficult situation, something I don't really have a strong opinion on, honestly.
Right. I mean, it's just, for me, like, you see stuff like with Cole Beasley saying no matter what, he's not going to get vaccinated. And he is a player on the Bills who made a difference last year. So to either see him either come around to it, or the Bills just say, well, sorry, then you're not going to play this year. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how.
Well, yeah, and even Hopkins had something to say. He said, look, I might even retire, but I don't know how serious he was there. But
What's the update on that? Do you?
He hasn't really said anything since then. So I have a feeling he's going to stick around.
Last I saw, he was spotted at practice with an undisclosed injury. I don't know if that was him just like sitting out. That's what I heard. So I don't know if it's just him like sitting out or if he's actually injured. So we'll see. Definitely affects his ranking though.
Yeah, for sure.
I think with no distractions, he's probably top 3 wide receiver.
Yeah, for sure.
He's a stud.
At least top 5.
Yeah.
There is quite a bit of
We'll talk about that
talent there.
We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Something else cool I saw, Alex Smith actually signed a deal with ESPN. So he'll make appearances on SportsCenter, Monday Night Countdown, Sunday NFL Countdown. From what I read, it's not going to be like a full-time thing. He'll kind of just make appearances as needed or as wanted by ESPN. But I think that's pretty cool, His whole comeback story last year was awesome. And stepping away from football, it's good to see he's segueing into something.
And it looks like he knows what he's doing. I've seen him a couple times on Colin Cowherd.
Right.
And it's just interesting. You think the 49ers made the right pick? Think they should have gone with number 12? I don't know.
Yeah.
Going back to Alex Smith, though, that's I'm very happy for him, because obviously whenever a player gets injured, you're always like, oh, I hope he can come back. But with Alex Smith, you were saying, I hope he survives. Like, there was a lot of issues with his recovery process, and it's something that's like really kind of scary. Now it's going to be in the back of everyone's mind when someone gets a really bad injury like that, because it was pretty scary. But I'm very happy for him. I think he'll do well.
Oh yeah. Some injury updates on players. Saquon Barkley returned to practice yesterday with his knee conundrum. Darren Waller returned to practice yesterday with his ankle injury. Justin Jefferson returned on Monday with his shoulder injury. Any of those kind of taint how you're going to look at these players when you're drafting them? I mean, for me, I don't have Darren Waller on my board just for the fact of I sit at pick number 7. I've got other things I'm probably going to take. But with an ankle injury, we saw a lot of people last year, ankle sprains, high ankle sprains, miss a extended amount of time. But as the people are saying, it's minor. So
now, based on where I'm sitting, I'm sitting at pick 8 right after you. I'm not worried about Saquon Barkley. If he falls to me, that'd be amazing. But if I was in the top 5 pick, I would start thinking about it. And Darren Waller, if I don't get Travis Kelce in like the first couple rounds, I'm gonna wait on a tight end. So
Right.
and he's going in like the mid. He's going like 2-3. So I would not reach on him for sure. And who's the other one you mentioned?
Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I know you love Justin Jefferson. I've always said I don't really trust too many quarterback or wide receivers with Kirk Cousins as the quarterback.
Right.
He was a stud last year. Hope maybe he'll prove me wrong.
And I mean, a shoulder injury, unless it's you tore your shoulder out, it's something you can either play through and still be at a high
The fact that
level.
he's already back at practice.
Yeah. And we still have 2 weeks or so before the season starts. So I feel like him of all of them, even though I'm already higher on him, his injury doesn't concern me as much.
No.
Stephon Diggs' knee injury, it's minor and little concern, is what Coach McDermott said yesterday.
Stephon Diggs has had a history of bad seasons when he had an injury.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a knee, and he is running routes, having to cut, having to, make jump balls. I don't know. I'm not going to be too worried about it, because if they're saying it's minor, you got to go with what they're saying.
The problem with him, though, he's still going really high. Like, some people are taking him in the back end of the first round.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
Or early second.
Yeah.
So, for me, that would drop him down a little bit, but, again, he's probably not a guy that's going to roll back around to me, so I'm not too worried about it. Chase Claypool, he had a minor ankle sprain yesterday. He was helped off the field, but he did tweet last night, all is well.
Adam Schefter reports as a minor ankle sprain.
Right. So. But, I mean, to me, minor, he gets up and walks off the field, doesn't get carried off the field. So, I mean, he in my eyes is their number 2 wide receiver if he's healthy.
I would say he's number 1. I think he's passing Juju at this point.
I think Juju's 3. I think
Deontay Johnson.
Just volume-wise, that guy is always on the field, but he also has a history of injuries. I had him last year and was not happy with all of that.
Right.
Moving on, Melvin Gordon, a minor groin injury on Monday. How does this impact how you look at Javonte Williams in that backfield?
Well, I think Javonte Williams is the number 1 running back for Denver, fantasy-wise.
Right.
It worries me a little bit just because Denver is a running back by committee.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll see. I think Javonte Williams is going to have a lot of value in the second half of the season. And now with Melvin Gordon getting hurt, he might be playing a little bit more than we thought.
And that's what I'm thinking. If Gordon's having any sort of injury troubles, that could make Javonte Williams more relevant earlier in the season. And from what I saw from the Broncos' offensive line last year, they may not hold very well in the passing game, but they know how to run block. Yeah. So I think that his value goes up if Gordon's groin injury continues to be a problem. We had Jonnu Smith leave practice early Sunday with an ankle injury. It is listed as minor. Joe Burrow isn't going to play on Friday, and he didn't play in their first preseason game either. Do you see it as precautionary?
Yeah, not a big surprise there.
I mean, I've heard things coming out of the training camp that he almost is playing scared, doesn't... Which I would too if I was behind that offensive line.
Sure.
I mean, I have him kind of the lower end of quarterbacks
he might be a good fantasy quarterback because I'm assuming the Bengals aren't going to be behind a lot. They're going to throw the ball a lot too.
Well, and he's got a lot of weapons.
Yeah, Jamar Chase.
Yeah, he's worth a late-round flyer, I think.
For sure. And then, sadly, Tim Tebow got cut for the Jaguars yesterday. So sad.
Yeah, it is what it is.
It's a good story. There's obviously someone in the league that's like, oh, Tim Tebow's going to be great. I'm going to pick him, but it doesn't really affect me.
When I was going through mock drafts, I was like, with my very last pick, I don't really have anything else I need. If he's still on the team, I might as well take him.
He wasn't going in. He was going in like the third round in some mock draft.
Oh, jeez.
There's some people just like ridiculously hype on him. Not surprised, though.
All right, well, that was news and notes from around the league. Now let's hop into the bulk of what we want to talk about, and that is the rankings of these players. So should we start in running backs? Because that's probably where most drafts are going to start.
Towards the top.
Yeah.
All right, so the top 6 I think are pretty secure. Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, so I've got rankings from a few different places. ESPN has Dalvin Cook as their number 1, and then everywhere else, including myself, has him at 2, and then vice versa with Christian McCaffrey. So Derrick Henry at 3. I've got him at 3. ESPN's got him at 3. A couple other places have him at 4. In a PPR league, is he somebody you take at 3, or do you look at, say, Alvin Kamara, who's going to be involved in the passing game, Saquon, who normally is involved in the passing game, somebody like that?
I would gamble on taking Barkley at 3, just because I know he had the injury, but his upside is higher than Derrick Henry in a PPR league, 100%. Right. But I'm not going to argue with you, Derrick Henry at 3. I think based on the top 6, Ezekiel Elliott's clearly at 6, right, and McCaffrey and Cook are clearly the top 2. But between Kamara, Henry, and Barkley, you can like jumble those up, and the order I wouldn't argue with the order.
Right.
Yeah, so McCaffrey and Cook I think are 1 and 2 no matter what order you put there. Number 3, I think if you're talking PPR, it's Alvin Kamara. I think he's not just a running back, he's an offensive weapon.
Right.
And Derrick Henry, he's been very lucky not really having an injury-riddled career the way he plays. He's one of the most aggressive running backs.
I mean, he's also 250 pounds.
Exactly.
He's built like it.
Right, exactly. But, he's the most aggressive running back I've seen since Jerome Bettis.
Right.
So the fact that he doesn't have any injuries, I think, is really lucky. But, PPR, I'm going Alvin Kamara, but standard, I'm going Derrick Henry at 3.
The only thing I worry about Kamara is they might be stacking the box with Kamara because Michael Thomas, how long is he going to be out for?
Who knows?
And after Michael Thomas, they have no weapons except for Kamara. And the thing with Barkley is I think the Giants' offense is going to be a lot better this season. They got a lot more weapons. So they may not be stacking the box for Barkley as much as they have in the past. And I think that'll just exceed his potential.
For me, with Barkley, I have him at 9.
For running backs or overall?
Yes.
Wow.
For running backs. Because it's a little personal. Had him last year. And in the 2 games before he got injured, one game he had 6 carries for 2 yards. And the only thing that made his day for fantasy decent was he caught 4 passes. And with the Giants adding weapons, Kenny Golladay being the biggest, I don't know how much that's going to take away from him in the passing game, which is where a lot of his value comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know Kenny Galladay's status. You never do. He's always somebody who's hurt. Maybe he'll play, maybe he won't. But I feel like if Galladay's in, he's going to take away from some of Saquon's target share. And I don't really like the Giants' offensive line all that much, so running the ball is going to be hard for him as well.
And don't forget about Kadarius Toney, too. I think he could have an immediate impact on this offense.
Exactly. So I just have him, quite a bit lower.
Who do you have at between 6, 7, 8 then?
That's a jumble. So 6, I've got Nick Chubb. Or actually, 6, I have Zeke. 7, I don't even have a 7 on here. So the kind of jumble for me, though, is Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, Zeke Elliott. That's kind of that jumble in that middle area.
Then who's the other one in your top 5?
I've got Cook, McCaffrey, Henry, Kamara, and Aaron Jones.
Okay. Yeah, my problem with Aaron Jones is I just feel like they don't give him the ball as much as they should.
I've had him for 3 seasons, and
I think
he's so underutilized.
He could be in that top tier if they gave him the ball like he's the number 1 running back. They just don't.
Right, and I don't know if it helps that Jamal Williams isn't there anymore, but I feel like they might move A.J. Dillon into that
that's
same
the
kind of
problem with
role.
A.J. Dillon.
Well, that's the thing. I think A.J. Dillon is going to be that goal line running back, and he's going to be stealing a lot of touchdowns. And really, in the red zone, the Packers tend to pass it. They tend to go for Tanyan or Devontae Adams.
Right.
So,
and I think with Jones, though, Williams came in a lot to do a lot of those swing routes, and they would throw the ball to him. I don't see A.J. Dillon being that guy. So I feel like Jones is going to get more volume in the passing game, at least a few more touches per game. And in a PPR league, if he gets 5 catches, that's just an extra 5 points on top of whatever else he gets. And he's an explosive guy. So I've got him pretty high. I've always been pretty high on Aaron Jones. But I guess we'll just have to see.
But going back to like the RB tiers, like I said, I think like I mentioned, those top 6 I think are in their own tier just because they're clearly the number one. I don't see really anyone taking carries away from them except for maybe is Latavius Murray still on the Saints?
I believe so. Yes.
So then he could take some goal line from Kamara, but Kamara just has so much work in the passing game. I think that kind of counteracts that. And then I would put like the Aaron Jones, the Nick Chubbs, the Austin Eckler's, even Jonathan Taylor. I'd put in the second tier. I think Jonathan Taylor could be a tier 1 because that Colts offensive line is amazing. Although Quentin Nelson will be out a couple of weeks, which does hurt. But I think if Jonathan Taylor gets like the bulk of the carries, he could be a top running back, or at least towards the top.
I've seen him in top 5 lists.
My problem there though is, are the Colts going to give him that kind of workload? I mean, last year they still were mixing in Nyheim Hines
That's the
and
one.
all of those people.
Marlon Mack is back.
Yeah, like they were putting them in there for no reason. He's obviously a first, like your number 1 guy.
I'm not so worried about Marlon Mack because I feel like his injury was just like clearly career-ending. I mean, he might be back. He'll probably do some carries, but not a lot. Nyheim Hines does worry me because he'll probably be the bulk of the catching or the passing game. That's the one issue with him. But like I said, I think if you look at the offensive line to the running back, I think he's probably second behind Chubb. Because I think the Colts and the Browns are probably the best offensive lines.
For sure. The last guy I kind of have in this first to second round guys is Austin Eckler. I really like Austin Eckler. He's a guy that if it swings around to me and I decide to take a running back and I've got Nick Chubb, Zeke Elliott, or Austin Eckler on the board, I might lean towards Austin Eckler because he's a guy who, not last season, but the season before, had upwards of 70-some receptions and 1,000 yards through the air. Like, that's huge. And then he adds on the running game as well. He's a guy that is actually very dangerous and not a lot of people remember because he wasn't there last year. So he's a guy that he would create problems in my head if I had to choose between those people.
Right, for PPR, he's absolutely late first, early seconds.
Right. And he's one I hope would maybe swing around to that second round for me. But I don't see that. Some other guys that aren't necessarily those top tier guys, maybe running back twos. First, I got Antonio Gibson. He's a guy that I wouldn't even mind having as a running back one, depending on how you build your team.
He's going way too high, though. He's going like the second round. That's way too high for me. With a guy who hasn't really established himself yet. That's my opinion.
I think he established himself last year. Before he got injured, he was having a really good rookie season.
That's the problem. He's had 2 major injuries already, so...
I think he's an RB1 if you get a guy like Adams or Tyreek Hill.
Right. Like, if you're building your team to, say, be wide receiver heavy, or you want to take one of those top tight ends right away, he's a guy that, if you want to, you could pick him up as your one. And I think he's a lock for running back too.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
That's where he kind of ranks for me. And there was reports out of camp that they're going to try to use him in like a Christian McCaffrey type of role for Washington.
I could definitely see that.
So that's a promising thing, and if he can stay healthy, that's a healthy workload to give you points throughout the season. Next is David Montgomery.
The Bears.
I don't know. I mean, he kind of had a shaky season to begin last year, but he was also hurt. Like, he had a really bad injury in the preseason, that took him out of commission for a while, and then it just took him a while to get back on the horse. But when he got back on the horse, he got back on the horse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was
Yeah.
great, and he showed up right in the fantasy playoffs when it really mattered for people. And I feel like he's going to continue that this season. The problem is Tariq Cohen is going to come back and all of that. I don't know how much I believe Tariq Cohen is going to affect him.
Right. I mean, he ran for 1,000 yards last year. You can't take that for granted. But again, with Tariq Cohen, I don't know how Cohen's going to be back after that injury. So
Yeah, and I mean,
Well, watching the Bears a lot, I will say they did not use David Montgomery in the passing game at all when Cohen was in there.
Right.
Grant, when Cohen was out, he was a stud.
Yeah.
Those last couple games when Trubisky came back and the Bears were like riding high and they made a push to the playoffs, he was amazing. I think the first play of the Houston Texans game, he ran an 80-yard run for a touchdown. I mean, I think right now Tariq Cohen's on the PUP list, so that does help Montgomery stock a little bit. But like I said, me personally, I don't take any Bears players because I watch them all the time and it just frustrates me. But as a non-Bears fan, I would say if he's there in the third round, I wouldn't mind taking him.
well, and I feel like Montgomery is a clearly lesser version of Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to just bet on his volume in the running game to get you points, not necessarily the passing numbers to supplement that.
Well, the thing with David Montgomery is even if I wasn't a Bears fan, Josh Jacobs is going after him, and I would take Josh Jacobs over him any day.
Yeah, I would have Josh Jacobs above him.
And he's going every draft. He's going like in the 40s. When Montgomery's going like not the 40s. Josh Jacobs going like somewhere between 30 and 39, and Montgomery's going between like 21 and 29. So that's personally my issue why I would never have him.
I do have some ADP, average draft position rankings. Montgomery is sitting at 16.
That's way too high.
At the 303 spot, so third round, third pick. Jacobs is at 19, third round, 10th pick.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
That's pretty close.
I would rather, if I can, not take Montgomery and wait to have Josh Jacobs come back around to me than,
yeah.
that's kind of where I would sit with that.
So I'm going to list like four other running backs that are like kind of going around this age. So we got Najee Harris for the Steelers, Joe Mixon on the Bengals, Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the Chiefs, and then Miles Sanders, one of my sleeper picks for the Eagles. The reason he's a sleeper pick for Miles Sanders is because I don't know much about this new coach, but I do know Doug Peterson would not use one running back. So, and now that he's out, I think that allows Miles Sanders to be a stud, in my opinion.
I like Miles Sanders, and he's a guy who last season, he 1 week broke off a 74-yard touchdown, had a decent week, and then the week after that broke off another 74-yard touchdown, and then the week after that had an 80-yard touchdown catch. He's an explosive guy, and especially in our league where we have bonuses for those kind of things, he's an equalizer.
Sure.
And he's a guy that could win you weeks.
Plus, he could have like 10 catches a game, assuming the Eagles are going to suck, which I think they will. They're going to probably pass the ball a lot towards the end of the game.
Well, and I think with Jalen Hurts being in there, it's going to be more of like RPO type of stuff, quick passes, and a lot of those quick passes are something out of the backfield. So I feel like he's going to be involved in the passing game as well. So I think he's a guy that, value-wise, you could get him a little later and still have value at your running back spot.
I also like Joe Mixon. I don't love him, but for like an RB2 or like if you get him like the third round, I think that's a good pick because, like I said, he's probably of all the running backs that are going to get like a majority of the carry. He's probably the lowest just because it's the Bengals.
Right.
But like he's going to get like 70 to 80% of the touches in that backfield. I mean,
he's been consistent throughout his career. So
well, my problem with Joe Mixon is I feel like the Bengals are going to be super pass heavy. They've got 3 really good wide receivers. They're probably not going to be winning a lot of games, so they're going to be playing from behind. Where does Mixon get himself involved when they are throwing the ball a lot?
It's the same thing with this, like with David Montgomery and Josh Jacobs. I would much rather have Josh Jacobs, and he's going after Joe Mixon.
Exactly.
So that's the thing.
Yeah.
What about Najee Harris?
So many people are so high on him.
Well, the thing with Najee Harris, because the number one running back in the Steelers offense is always so good.
Yeah.
So he has that potential, but like he's a rookie, and is he going to get the majority of the carries? I mean, he probably will.
Yeah, I think he will.
he's not a guy I'm willing to spend a second-round pick on because he's going in a lot of drafts at in that second round.
This ranking has him at 20.
If I look at
overall.
here, where's he at? He's somewhere in here. Lord, this is a whole mess. Maybe he's not in here. He should be. Yeah, there he is. So yeah, second round, second pick.
Whoa,
That's
way too
so
high.
Way too high.
So for me, I would just rather steer away from him. I think he'll have a good season, but the way I want to build my team, I don't want to spend that high of a pick on somebody who you don't know what's going to happen.
Right, and, I think, if he doesn't do well in the beginning, maybe Anthony McFarland Jr. gets more carries and takes away from that. I don't think they're going to be in any rush to give him 25, 30 carries a game.
But they are the Steelers. They might.
That's
I
true.
mean, Ben is on his way down, so...
Yeah.
And if they're in games where they're
You don't
winning...
believe in Dwayne Haskins on the Steelers?
Again, I'm an Ohio State guy, and I
I
don't trust any Ohio State quarterback. You and I have had the conversation about Justin Fields a few times. I don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Dwayne Haskins in training camp. So
The only, like I said, the difference between Fields and Haskins is Haskins has a terrible work ethic.
yeah,
So that's the only thing.
he likes his strippers.
So what about Clyde Edwards Hilarious, as I like to call him?
He's another guy that's going way too high for me. I don't see why. He was decent last year, but he wasn't a guy that warrants a super high pick. I mean, he's going second round, 6th pick. There's other guys I would much rather take over him that are going after he is. So I
think he has a lot of PPR value.
I don't know. He wasn't super involved in the passing game. He had like 40 catches, which is mediocre for a running back if you want that passing volume.
See, last year I was super high on him, and I'm still pretty high on him now. I'm not as high, but last year I said, just look at what Damian frickin' Williams did in that Chiefs running back role. He was a stud. And granted, when Le'Veon Bell came in, it kind of really derailed his season. Le'Veon Bell's gone. He's clearly not coming back because he's complained about Andy Reid. And so I would take him in the second round. I would trust in him, especially if I if I pick like one of the top wide receivers, perhaps, I would probably take him in the second round if he's there.
I mean, and I think about the Chiefs offense like this. They don't run the ball a large amount. They're mostly throwing the ball. And where do those targets go? They go to Tyreek Hill. They go to Travis Kelce. Other than that, you've got a handful of targets to go to the rest of the offense. I just don't see where he gets that, 15 to 20 points a week unless he's scoring a touchdown, unless he's, getting 3 or 4 catches and, breaking tackles and making a long play. I just don't see him being in that area that would warrant him going beginning of the second round.
The reason I think that he's still going to be pretty high is just because you won't see Mahomes doing like QB sneaks after what happened 2 years ago. Yeah. So I think if it's on the 1 yard line, they'll probably just hand it to him, or they'll do like a fake to Kelce or something like that. So I think that's a good pick for him. I mean, is Darrell Williams still on the team? I know he kind of had most of the passing game last year.
I think he might be.
I mean, I don't worry about him too much, so I'm fine. I'm fine with him. It depends on how the draft goes, but I would much rather take him like towards like the turn of the second and third round rather than like the middle of the second. Yeah. So as much as I like him, I'm not really in a good position to grab him, but it depends on who's available for me.
Right. All right, so let's move on maybe now to wide receivers because those are probably the next top guys that'll be going. We've got Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs,
they're their own tier.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Those two are their own tier for me.
Yeah, I mean that's the upper echelon, and then you've got.
I think we're in a good spot because, in my opinion, I think there's 9 guys that are in the top tier. The 6 running backs I mentioned, those 2 and Travis Kelce, and I know you're 9, so in our draft. So I think we're in a good spot. I would not want to have pick number 10 because then I'd be worried about who comes. Probably someone's also going to reach on Mahomes, but yeah, you can keep going. I just want to point that out.
So I really like Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. They're guys that are going towards the end of that first round in most drafts. That's somewhere I could see taking one of those guys in my eyes, there's 3 possible wide receiver spots, and there's a lot more depth at wide receiver than there is at running back.
Yes.
So, do you value having 3 wide receivers that could possibly get you 20 points a week, and then have running backs that only get you about 10 to maybe 15, or do you spend the higher picks on running backs that could get you 15, 20, 25, and then receivers that get you about 15?
Well, the one thing with wide receivers, there's more depth. There's more depth with wide receivers, but it's more like the thing with the wide receivers are more. It seems like they're more boom or bust than running backs in the later picks. So, I think a good example of this would be like Kenny Galladay. Giants have a lot of wide receivers. He could get like 30 points. He could get 3 touchdowns, but he could also get like 2 points.
Right.
Whereas a lower running back, such as who's a lower like Chris Carson, he probably is going to get you at least 10 to 15. So it's a tough one. Like it really just depends on where it falls to me. I know leaving the second round, I like to have 1 running back and 1 wide receiver, depending on who that is. Doesn't matter.
Right.
But that's how I would like to view the draft.
And then kind of below those 2, we've got Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Calvin Ridley, Keenan Allen. Do you have any tier break in there between those guys, or would that pretty much be a first come first serve type of?
I think those are all solid picks.
Right.
You like Justin Jefferson. I like him too. DeAndre Hopkins, I think, is right behind. Like
I said, I would put Hopkins in tier 1 if I know he's
Sure.
going to play.
Sure.
Right.
That's the only issue is because there's not really a lot coming out about him. I keep looking it up because our draft is this weekend.
Right.
So I'm because I would definitely 100% pick him, but I don't know what the situation is. I love DK Metcalf. I love Keenan Allen. Calvin Ridley is a little iffy for me. I don't know how he's going to be it's his first year in the wide receiver 1 role, and he doesn't really seem like this big dominant wide receiver.
All I'm going to say about him is last year we didn't see a lot of Julio Jones. And when we didn't see Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley was going off. He was a wide receiver 1 option for your team most weeks when Julio wasn't around.
Yeah.
Now the only other big target on that team is Kyle Pitts, who's a rookie.
Will he take the number 1? People say he was the most talented player in the draft last year. So
would love to see Kyle Pitts do great, but for him to be like a top 5 fantasy guy, he's going to have the greatest rookie season of a tight end ever.
Yeah.
Which he very well could. He's
possible.
definitely the second target, at least. Could be a higher target than Calvin Ridley, but I feel like Calvin Ridley is going to be the guy. He's going to make most of the target share on that team. I think Calvin Ridley's a guy I think could be in the top 5.
Well, when Julio's healthy and plays, 16 games a season, I don't think he ever has, but he averages 100 to 105 catches. Somebody's going to have to take those balls,
Right.
And the lion's share is going to go to Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting. I might steer away from him. I'd rather take Metcalf or Keenan Allen just because I like their quarterback.
I love Metcalf.
I love Keenan Allen too. I had Keenan Allen last year, and I was so sad week 1 when Tyrod Taylor would only throw to Mike Williams, and then freaking Justin Herbert came in and just saved Keenan Allen's season. So
yeah.
I like Keenan Allen. And the other one you said was A.J. Brown.
A.J. Brown.
Definitely going to stay away from him as well. Going too high. Julio Jones is there, and number 1 in that offense is Derrick Henry.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just don't know if they pass it. With Julio Jones there now, I don't know if they're going to pass the ball enough to make him a wide receiver 1.
Right.
So that's my issue with him.
I think he's a great athlete and a great talent, but it's a team that's built to run that'll throw the ball 25 to 30 times. Where those targets are going, who knows? But I don't see enough volume going A.J. Brown's way to spend a higher pick on him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have no idea how they're going to split Julio and A.J., so...
let's see. We got so now kind of underneath that, we got Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin, Allen Robinson, CeeDee Lamb, and then Julio Jones.
So I've seen CeeDee Lamb go top 10 receivers. I just don't see that happening.
I think it's possible,
it's-
but I am not going to take any wide receiver on the Cowboys. Too many mouths to feed.
Exactly.
But I would love to take Dak Prescott. Well, we'll get to that in a little bit, though. But there's just there's too many Gallup's on the team. Right?
Not top 10 overall, but top 10 receivers. I should say.
Michael Gallup's on the team, right? I'm not.
Michael Gallup is on the team, and obviously Amari Cooper.
Yeah, that's just too much for me.
So CeeDee Lamb's sitting about round 3, pick 7.
See, no, that's too high for me.
He's a guy that I am excited about.
I am too. I think he's great, but it's just
if Cooper and Gallup were on the team, I'd say he's top 5 wide receiver.
But for him to be somebody you take in the top 3 rounds, you would have had to have taken 2 other wide receivers.
Sure.
And he's going to be your flex guy.
Yeah.
That's the only... I wouldn't want to make him my wide receiver 2, just because, like you said, there's a lot of mouths to feed. But as a flex position player, or, say one of your top receivers has a bye week and you have to plug him into that wide receiver 2, he's still somebody that you can be comfortable with being there.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, going in the 3rd round, I feel like you would have had to take 2 other wide receivers for him to be that 3rd round pick.
I agree.
My top guy from those would be Terry McLaurin.
I agree.
He's an absolute stud.
And you got Mr. Gunslinger
Ryan
Fitzpatrick.
Fitzmagic. I love him.
In all reality, terrible QB choice for the football team. But for Terry McLaurin's sake, I love it.
I think Fitzpatrick coming in makes this offense more able to pass the ball because he is a gunslinger. And I feel like there's going to be more targets. Terry McLaurin already eats up a lot of targets, and he's going to get more. Terry McLaurin's a guy that I would be comfortable taking as a wide receiver 2 at some point.
Yes.
But, yeah. I mean, I like Terry McLaurin. So the other one you said was Mike Evans.
Mike Evans.
Similar to the Cowboys. Too many mouths to feed. Yeah, that's even worse. You got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, and Antonio Brown. That is too much.
So of the 3 top Buccaneers receivers, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, which one would you want to take? And based on where they're going, you got Evans and Godwin going about the same spot, somewhere in the 4th or 5th round.
Based on where they're going.
But then Antonio Brown kind of slips all the way down.
Yeah, based on where they're going, I would take Brown, but I don't want any part of this because in the Super Bowl alone, how many catches did Mike Evans have in Chris? I think Chris Evans and Mike Evans combined for 4 catches in the Super Bowl. Because it was all Brown, and Gronkowski, which was very funny to see Gronk.
Well, and Evans last year, you saw. I mean, the only thing that saved quite a few of his weeks was touchdowns. One week he had 3 catches for 2 touchdowns and 2 yards. If he doesn't get those touchdowns, there is nothing to show for him that week. So, yeah, like you said, I would steer away.
Well, and the proof is in the pudding. His production went down once Antonio Brown came in.
Yeah.
And Gronk got better each week.
Yeah.
He'll probably be solid next year, so don't take away targets as well.
O.J. Howard is back, too.
I forgot about O.J. Howard. Is Cameron Brate still there?
I believe so.
The Buccaneers are so good. The Buccaneers are so good.
I think Gronkowski is going to take a step up and be more of what he was in New England.
Yeah.
I mean, he went from no football at all right back into football. And we saw it take him some time. And then towards the end of the season, he was looking more like himself. Now he's had an entire offseason, the preseason, training camp, and all of that. I think he's going to be more of a target in that offense, which makes him, in my opinion, viable for tight end. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Any other people in that tier?
My tier break's kind of right there underneath them.
Before we break into tight ends, I do want to talk about a little more receivers. 2 guys that I love this year. I'm just gonna Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp.
Yeah,
I love them this year. With all you can, I think Jared Goff's fine, but Matt Stafford is clearly better.
Oh yeah,
I'm a Bears fan. I watch the Lions all the time. He was the only good player on the Lions. Him and Kenny Galladay were the only good players. I really am liking those 2 this year.
I really like Matt Stafford for those guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same with me liking Ryan Fitzpatrick being in Washington.
Yeah.
I really like the fact that Matt Stafford is in a place where he's got really good wide receivers and an offense that kind of caters to the way he plays.
Well, and they're going to be more pass heavy now than ever since Sean McVay has been there, especially with Cam Akers out.
Yeah.
They're going to be relying on those two receivers.
Yeah. So which one would you say would be higher?
I think they're the exact same. It's whoever like falls to me. I would take Woods slightly because I think Woods is a little better, but like I would literally rank them right next to each other.
Right.
I think they're both very similar.
Yeah, I can see that. I think Woods, for me, would also be a little higher just because they do some of that weird end-around stuff to him, so also, he gets rushes.
Also, Cooks is gone, too. Or was he gone? I think he was gone last year. I don't even remember. I don't remember last year that much. So, and the other one I want to talk about, I don't know if he's in your tier, but Allen Robinson.
Yeah,
I think he could have a really good year if Justin Fields is good. But again, probably not going to pick him because I don't pick Bears players. But
right.
I think here's the thing. Where do you know where he ranked last year? Because I mean, you had Nick Foles for like 5 weeks, who was just awful. You had Trubisky, who was okay.
I don't have last year's rankings printed out, but he was still top 10, I believe.
I think he should go pretty high then because I don't know how much Andy Dalton's going to play, but even with Andy Dalton playing, it's similar QB production to what the Bears had last year.
Right.
And even if Justin Fields is okay, I still think his production, like if we're just talking Allen Robinson, I think he should be higher than where he's going.
Well, and I feel like if Justin Fields comes in, what do we see normally when a rookie quarterback comes in? They kind of pick a favorite guy, like we saw with Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen last year.
And Joe Burrow and T. Higgins.
Yeah, and they go to that guy most of the time. And I feel like Allen Robinson is the perfect guy for that. My only problem is last year you had play calling going to Darnell Mooney on a streak down the field for no damn reason when you had Allen Robinson
the entire year
either cutting on a slant or on a curl route open, and they just wouldn't throw him the ball.
It literally worked one time. I mean, I watched almost every Bears game last year. It worked one time, and it was against the Packers.
Yeah.
And then the play against the Saints where Javon Williams dropped the touchdown, but that was Javon Williams.
And then Jimmy Graham had way more touchdowns than he should have deserved to have.
Yes.
So, and you talked about Justin Fields picking a favorite. Sometimes, rookies like picking those tight ends, those big targets.
And Cole Kmet had a pretty solid last year.
Exactly. Cole Kmet is the guy to look out for.
Yeah. So you have him bumped up maybe in your tight end.
And it's just exact. I think Kmet could have a better season than Jimmy Graham.
I think he should.
He should. That's
Jimmy Grandpa should.
Jimmy Grandpa
definitely take a seat and let other people play.
So I think for tight ends, we should just talk. Obviously, Travis Kelce is everyone's number one. I think we should more talk about where you would pick him compared to the running backs and wide receivers.
Because he's essentially a receiver.
Yeah, I mean, he is far and away the number one tight end. I think talent-wise, George Kittle's the same, but George Kittle is not a necessarily good fantasy tight end because he blocks all the time. So I think if you just talk about the players, they're similar, but fantasy, it's clearly Travis Kelce. Where would you guys pick him compared to the running backs and wide receivers?
So I wouldn't want to touch him because if you take a tight end right away, that puts you in a hole at two other positions where you have three possibilities of guys that can be in there. I just don't justify taking a tight end right away. When if you let it slip and you get farther down, you can, kind of just roll the dice on somebody. But he's also a guy that could have 25 points in a week. And clearly you're going to win that tight end matchup. Highest I would take him is maybe that beginning of the second round.
I mean, here's the thing with tight ends. It just seems like there's always a tight end every year that's just like explodes. George Kittle 2 years ago. Last year, Darren Waller. And this year, I mean, there's a lot of low tight ends that I think could be good. You got Kyle Pitts. You got TJ Hawkinson. They have no one else in the Lions. Myles Gaskin, I think, is really... Not Myles Gaskin. That's the running back. Mike Gesicki. Yeah. He could be really good. So, and like you said, maybe Justin Fields picks Cole Kmet as his number one tight end. He's someone... But I just... Like I said, I'm probably not going to picking Travis Kelce because I just think I'd rather just take the gamble on a lower tight end being the tight end 2. He's probably going to be the tight end 1 yet again. I don't see why he wouldn't be because he's been the tight end 1 every year since, I think, 2016. It's been ridiculous.
Yeah.
he's this generation's Rob Gronkowski. It's ridiculous. But like I said, I would rather just take a gamble at picking another tight end low that could boom.
Yeah, so. Like I feel like in every mock draft I've done, tight ends have actually been going really high. Like those first kind of 5 tight ends, you go Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Darren Waller, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts. They're all going fairly early, like starting in the first round with Kelce. Someone goes in the second round, and then a couple in the third. Like they kind of drop like flies, and then you have that drop off where everybody just stays away, and then you have T.J. Hawkinson, who, like you said, the Lions don't really have anybody else. And he's a guy that already got a lot of targets.
And he's a stud, too.
So
he's their best player.
I think he's somebody that's really good to wait on. Logan Thomas, even. He had a kind of breakout year last year. I think he's a decent pickup.
Mark Andrews, too, but Mark Andrews seems to be going a little high.
Mark Andrews is almost consensus ranked number 4 at tight end, which rightfully so. He gives the production.
Oh, yeah, he's really good. It just he's going too high as well.
So
what about your Noah Fant? How about him?
Noah Fant, I've got him ranked as the 7th tight end.
I think I had him last year, and it was a little disappointing, but I do think as him, I think he's really good. I remember him and T.J. Hawkinson went to the same college, didn't they? And the fact that they both went to the same college, and I remember everyone saying, get these 2 tight ends from, was it Iowa or something? And I remember watching the first game because it was a Monday night game, and Noah Fant went off, and he was available in my league, so I picked him up. And he didn't have really that was his best game of the year, unfortunately.
I mean, he was battling injuries and stuff a little bit last year. He did end up playing, 13, 14 games, and he normally came in around 8 points or so a game, but it was also with Drew Lock making a lot of stupid decisions, the Broncos running the ball more. I think he's a guy that now the Broncos passing game, like all of the weapons are there now. You have Cortland Sutton back, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler was looking good in preseason earlier this past week. But Noah Fant, he's a big target, very athletic. I think he's a guy who could break into that, close to that top tier of those guys, somewhere in that middle tier. He's somebody I'd be okay with being my top tight end in my team.
Sure, I think depending on the round, I think I disagree with Jacob here. I think that there is not a lot of depth at tight end, so that's why I would value Kelce or Waller more than these guys. I think Noah Fant, ever since he entered the league, he has a ton of upside. Yeah. But I just haven't seen the production yet to make him a top-tier tight end.
The thing I agree, there's not a lot of depth when it comes to their floor. But I think a lot of lower tight ends could hit a really big ceiling.
Oh, absolutely.
Like T.J. Hawkinson could have as number 1 tight end. Because
for sure.
Jared Goff could only throw to him because there's no one else to throw to. I think Mike Gesicki Mike Gesicki's a stud. But the problem is they don't really throw to him that much, but they could throw to him as well.
Tua liked Mike Gesicki last year. Which hurt Devontae Parker. Like, we didn't even talk about Devontae Parker, who's a stud wide receiver, but it's because Mike Gesicki ate up the targets when Tua was on the field. So I feel like Mike Gesicki kind of is sitting up a little higher than he should.
Every year, Devontae Parker has a good end to the year, and everyone hypes him up the next year, and he always does terrible, and he does well at the end of the year. It's a recycle. I will never take Devontae Parker again.
Now he has Fuller and Waddle.
Yeah, that's another thing he does. Yeah,
and we'll see how Waller goes. He's suspended for the first game at least. Did I say Waller?
Yeah.
Fuller. I meant Fuller. Fuller, he's suspended that first game. He's kind of been in and out with injuries in camp, and he's always a guy that's in and out with injuries. So, but
about George, like I mentioned with George Kittle, like I said, I love George Kittle, but as far as fantasy goes, they use him for blocking so much. So his fantasy ability and his ceiling is kind of low. I think if he played every snap, he would be tight end 2 or 1 or 2. Or if he didn't block every snap, then that's the problem.
The Niners do run the ball quite a bit. They've got a large committee of running backs. Hopefully they slim that down this year for fantasy purposes for all of us. But he's also got Deebo Samuel to compete with. He's also got Brandon Ayuk, who had a really good rookie season last year, who probably is going to end up being their top receiver in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
And Raheem Mostert's a receiving running back.
He's a stud too. He's somebody I hope slips in those middle
you probably
rounds.
were 2 years ago against the Packers. That was
he
the best.
killed us.
That was the best game of a running back I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, every single play was like 10, 20 yards. It was ridiculous.
So with you saying you value Kelsey that high, are you willing to give up a running back receiver type to go get him?
Not in the first round. Certainly not in the early second round. If he's there in the third round, I'm probably going to take him.
All right, so if he's not, then are you valuing Darren Waller kind of the same?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I think Kelsey is a special case.
I would take Kelsey if I had to pick each. I would take him at 9. I would take the 6 running backs I mentioned, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and then Kelsey. So that's where you're sitting. But I think Kelsey will be gone because Kelsey in ESPN rankings, which is what our thing will be based off, is 4.
Yeah.
That's way too high. I think it's McCaffrey, Cook, and I think Barkley's 3. I could be wrong, but I don't think he'll come to us.
I think for at least the first 6 picks, people are going to kind of stick to that draft schedule of
someone might take
backs.
Mahomes too.
Yeah,
there's always someone in your friends league that's
or Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about quarterbacks.
Yeah, we'll kind of see where they slip. So obviously we got Pat Mahomes at the top. No arguments there, I would imagine. No. Then underneath that, you kind of have a jumble in that top, what I would consider top tier with Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson. I don't value him that high, but he's still up there, top 5.
I've always said this about Lamar Jackson. Take him all you want. I will never take him because that man has an ACL injury waiting to happen. His cuts are the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Well, and he can't throw the ball.
He can. I think he's coming around to it.
He averaged maybe 200 yards passing last year. Maybe. Most of the time he was 150 to 170 yards passing. If I'm taking a quarterback, I want him to throw touchdowns. I want those passing touchdowns, and he doesn't bring that.
One person I do like a lot, like I mentioned, I love Dak Prescott. They got so many weapons there. I know Ezekiel Elliott will probably take his touchdowns away in the 5, but what quarterback, other than probably Josh Allen, what quarterback is going to score the touchdown within the 5-yard line, you know?
Right. Well, and like Dak Prescott, I think he would have been in the running for that top quarterback position last year. Maybe not MVP because of how the Cowboys played.
That's another thing. Their defense sucks.
Yeah, so they had to throw the ball so much, and he was scoring. I think his average before he got hurt was like 37 points.
Yeah. Look at his first couple. Look at the games he did play. That Falcons game was ridiculous. He scored 40 points. The Browns game was like 58-48 that they lost. I forgot some of the other games, but all their games were just such high scoring because their defense was awful. And he has so many wide receivers.
He led the league in passing yards before he got hurt, and we haven't seen him a full season in the Mike McCarthy offense. So, I wouldn't call it Mike McCarthy offense because they got Kellen Moore too, kind of running things.
As far as quarterback rankings, I actually think we put Mahomes, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers. I think those are the top 7. But like I said, I wouldn't take Lamar Jackson because I will never take Lamar Jackson because, like I said, he looks like he's about to tear ACL every time he plays.
In my rankings, I have him all the way down at 12 at where I value him.
Who?
Lamar Jackson. There's plenty of other quarterbacks that I would rather take and bet on their passing abilities over taking Lamar Jackson.
I mean, he ran for 1,000 yards last year, and
he still finished a top 5.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you value that. And I was listening to something this morning, and it's like he almost is your running back 1 as well because of how he runs the football. So,
it's like imagine if David Montgomery could throw a pass.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just don't value him that high. Like you said, there's always that chance of injury every time he's running the football, and he just can't throw the ball that well.
Well, exactly, and that's why I like Kyler Murray a lot more.
Yeah, because Kyler Murray is about the same.
Yeah,
but he can throw the football, and he can. I mean, last year he kind of was sitting where Lamar was sitting, passing the ball, but
and also Kyler Murray has a much worse defense than. Although they have JJ, their defense might be good this year, but I think
they're
Kyler,
coming around. At least.
I think Lamar Jackson will be ahead more. than Kyler Murray. So I think that also allows Kyler Murray to just pass the ball a lot. And I know you say you can like oh, Mahomes is always going to be ahead. Yeah, but it's Patrick Mahomes. He's going to throw 80-yard touchdowns to Tyreek Hill every week.
Yeah.
So and then 2 more to Travis Kelce in the red zone.
And I like Kyler Murray more because he's got DeAndre Hopkins. If Hopkins is in. And unpopular opinion, they brought in A.J. Green. Not a lot of people are talking about A.J. Green, but he's going to be the wide receiver too. They don't really have anybody else to throw the ball to. So he's going to get his fair share, and that'll, give Kyler another option to throw the ball to instead of just DeAndre Hopkins every single time.
I will also say, though, if Hopkins isn't in, I wouldn't put him down that much because I think if Hopkins isn't there, he's going to run the ball so much because he's like, oh, there's no one available. I just got to... And he's really fast. He's I think, just slower than Lamar Jackson, but he's probably the second fastest quarterback.
Well, so. I think he's still got a running back option to throw the ball to in Chase Edmonds.
Yeah.
Sure.
So...
You're about to say something?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't.
Oh.
So, kind of underneath those top guys... Okay, so Tom Brady, actually. Would you put him into that upper tier of guys?
No, because he doesn't run the ball. And I do think they probably will just hand the ball off a lot more just because he's 43. Is he 43 or 44? Yeah. I do think that Buccaneers are going to be smart about it. They still have... Do they still have Leonard Fournette? Like I said,
yes, they do.
And they still have
Ronald Jones. And they got Giovanni Bernard.
Yeah, I do think that they're going to run the ball a lot. He's definitely in the second tier, though, because games that is like a tough matchup, he could throw 6 touchdowns easily. But I think I prefer Tom Brady against like the Bills or like the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I don't know if I assume they're not going to play because they're in the other division. But I wouldn't really like Tom Brady when they're playing like the Eagles because I just feel like they're going to run the ball just so much because it's probably going to be an easy game for them.
Brady's a guy that if I'm really loading up on running backs and receivers, I wouldn't hate taking him in those 8th, 9th round.
He's definitely in the top 12, and there's 12
for sure.
There's 12 teams in our league. I would put him like right behind the top tier.
Right. Another guy that I'm pretty high on. I had him in 2 different leagues last year. Justin Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
Rookie of the year. Do you think he kind of duplicates what he did last year and gets a little better?
I actually think he'll get a little better, but I think his fantasy will be about the same. I actually really like Joe Burrow. I'm really high on Joe Burrow, assuming he's healthy and he's all good.
Right.
Because he's got great weapons, and the team's probably going to be behind a lot.
Yeah.
And Justin Herbert, I can't say the same. I think they might play it smart, run the ball a little bit more, take, slow up the field kind of thing. So they're close. They're like 9 and 10 for me. Tom Brady's 8. They're like 9 and 10 for me for sure.
All right.
Yeah, I'm very high on Justin Herbert, especially that, with a new head coach coming in, he knows how well Herbert it was. Last year, Herbert wasn't expected to start so early, and now they're saying, okay, we know what we got in Herbert. Let's tailor this offense to this guy.
Yeah.
And with Austin Eckler, hopefully 100% healthy, I think that's going to help him out a ton.
Oh, yeah. Gives him somebody else to throw the ball to, like I was saying with Kyler Murray. The more targets you have as a quarterback, the more effective you're going to be, so that you aren't force-feeding one person and the defense doesn't key in on that. So,
and the other person similar to Justin Herbert is Matt Stafford. I think they're going to be very similar. Going to be on a good team, but play it also smart. I think they have the potential to score a lot of points, but I also think just the game plan might be more run-heavy with them. Maybe not as much Matt Stafford because, like you said, Cam Akers is out. But I think the second tier would be Brady, Herbert, Burrow, and Stafford. And then after that, I'm not sure if I like anyone.
So where do we see Ryan Tannehill? I see him top 10.
I'm not picking him. I know.
If you look at him the last 2 seasons, he's been top 10 for the last 2 seasons. He's super consistent. He is not going to give you a Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen type of game, but 20 points isn't out of the question on a consistent week basis.
See, I'll tell you what the problem with I think it's the opposite. I think he's too inconsistent because if Derrick Henry's on, they're never going to use Ryan Tannehill, and that's my issue. He could have games where he throws 30. He can throw like 5 touchdowns. He does that he did that against the Texans, I think, or something like that. But the problem is that Derrick Henry is running for like 150, 200 yards. They're never going to throw the ball. That's also why I don't like A.J. Brown or Julio Jones as well.
Right.
Especially because I would not trust him. If I have Ryan Tannehill, I would probably do more of like a stream quarterback where I would like just take people off the waivers, whoever had good matchups and stuff.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I would rank him top 10, probably at number 10, but I would put him over Matt Stafford. I think, he's super comfortable in this offense. He knows what he's doing. Everybody's back, plus he's got Julio. So I think I trust him as a number 10, a low QB1.
Right. Like, again, another guy who I would be comfortable taking if I'm loading everything else up. If I've got 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers,
sure,
and maybe even a tight end, and he's still there, and he's, kind of the top option at that point, I'm not going to scoff it, be like, oh, God, I have to take Ryan Tannehill. I'll be like, okay, that's
if I did draft Tannehill, I would want another quarterback, but with a lot of upside, like a Joe Burrow or maybe even Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. And Trevor Lawrence has been, in mock drafts I've been doing, he's actually dropping quite a ways.
I think people are starting to come around like, the Jaguars suck. But I think the Jaguars have some solid receivers. DJ Chark, I think, is a stud. That's why, going back to the Allen Robinson and Justin Fields, I say the same thing about DJ Chark and Trevor Lawrence. If DJ Chark is his favorite target, he could be a really stud wide receiver.
Yeah. But that's the question. Is he going to be, because they got Laviska Shenault, Marvin Jones Jr. is going to be coming in.
Yeah, Marvin Jones, that's a big one.
So, yeah.
I think he's, like you said, somebody with a lot of upside. Lawrence has a lot of upside. I mean, since he's been in high school, he's just stepped up and played. Really.
He hasn't lost a regular season game since, I don't think ever. I mean, unless you count before high school. Right. But that's kind of crazy.
Like,
he's going to be losing a lot of regular season.
Oh, yeah.
He's the guy with a lot of upside. Somebody else that I see with a bit of upside is Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy, though, like you said, if you take a Ryan Tannehill, you're going to want a second quarterback with some upside. Jalen Hurts is somebody I would put into that kind of category. He's got rushing ability. We saw when he came in at the end of last year, he did pretty well. He didn't do anything flashy, but he came out and he performed. He threw the ball well.
He did his job.
Ran the ball, and he's a guy who has the possibility, because of his rushing potential, to give you a solid fantasy week.
Absolutely.
Are there any lower quarterbacks that you're really high on? I'll give you one.
I've got one.
Daniel Jones. I'm really high on Daniel Jones because if you look at his games, he has such good touch pass. It seems like every time he has a touch patch, it falls, or at least comes close. Right. He doesn't make the best decisions, but I think he's got the talent. And not to mention, he's got so many weapons now. He's got Kenny Galladay, he's got Steve Slayton, or Darius Slayton, sorry. Steve Slayton was an old player. And then he also got Golden Tate, plus he got Evan Ingram, who's overrated, but whatever. He gets open, he drops the ball out, but I think he could.
Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, and they could also throw the ball to Barkley, and he can run for like 80 yards. I think he would be if I am drafting, I'm like, oh my god, I don't have a quarterback. All right, I'll take Daniel Jones. I think he's got good upside. So
yeah, and the Giants are a team I was high on last year because if you look at how they played, they were literally in every single game. They lost a lot of games by a field goal or less, even to good teams. They're a team that I think is on the verge of being actually competitive in every game.
Didn't they beat the Seahawks last year in Seattle or something? They beat the Seahawks last year. I don't remember where it was, though.
I think it was in Seattle, too. Yeah. But then again, last year there wasn't any home field advantage.
That's true.
There was no fans. That's something else we talk about.
Really, Denver had the only home field advantage, honestly, because of the
altitude. A guy that I wouldn't mind literally not taking a quarterback until the very end is Ryan Fitzpatrick. I've got a feel. I've loved him, and I've had him almost every single season I've played fantasy. Not as my starter, but as a guy who you're like, hey, that's a good matchup.
He'll have 40 points week 1.
Yeah, he'll have a big first week, and then we'll see. But he's got a lot of weapons, a lot more weapons than he normally has. He's got an offensive line that's not terrible. I mean, it was pretty decent last year. I don't know how much they did to upgrade that. And then arguably the top defense in the league. So I like Fitzpatrick, and I mean his value is those last 2 rounds of the draft.
Yeah.
So he's somebody, even if I have a quarterback or 2, if he's available in my last pick, I'm going to take him.
I got 2 names. Matt Ryan. I think he's kind of almost the forgotten man here. He's got an offensive head coach now in Arthur Smith. I don't think he's going to play as well, with his MVP year with Kyle Shanahan at OC. I don't think he's ever going to get back to that level, but I still think he's worth, like I said, he's kind of the forgotten man here. And then another name, Jameis Winston.
If he starts, I could see.
Taysom Hill is not gonna be your starter.
I think Jameis Winston starts.
I think the fans want Taysom Hill to be it though, and I think there might be some pressure.
I think Sean Payton's gonna have the final decision there, but you look at his last year in Tampa Bay. Sure, yeah, he led the league in interceptions and was pretty bad, but he had a ton of passing yards.
Well,
and so
Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were better with Jameis Winston because he just threw the ball wherever the hell
he just
wanted.
Chucked the ball. But I think with a little more discipline with Sean Payton, I think certainly I don't think he's a QB1 by all means, but I think he's certainly maybe worth a late round flyer.
I can understand that if Michael Thomas was there the whole season, and there's reports he might not even play, he might not even want to.
Sure.
What about so we already talked about Trevor Lawrence. What about some of the other rookies?
Well, the only other one who is for sure starting
is Zach
Wilson.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the Jets. I don't necessarily believe in Zach Wilson as, oh my God, he's going to have a great rookie year. But he could. And he's got people around him, receiver-wise, that, I mean, they're not top-tier receivers, but they're good receivers for that team.
Hey, Corey Davis had a great year last year.
Jamison Crowder's.
Yeah.
He's a guy I like as, just somebody to roster if you want.
The Jets, I don't think they have a necessarily good team, but they have a little bit of an underrated team, especially their defensive line is really good. I know that doesn't really help Zach Wilson, but I do think that the Jets will win probably like 6 or 7 games, and I think Zach Wilson will be fine.
And
that's pretty good.
There's also 7. Well, the thing is, I said 6-11 is not a good record because there is 17 games.
They did get rid of Adam Gase as well, so the black hole of Adam Gase is out of the Jets organization. So maybe we see that take a little.
Well, and they're running essentially the Kyle Shanahan offense, now,
right?
So.
And then under that, you'd have Justin Fields and Trey Lance, who we don't know when they're going to start, but in my opinion, at some point in the season, they're going to be the guy.
I don't know about Trey Lance because if Jimmy Garoppolo's playing well, they're not going to bench him, and he could play well. I mean, look at 2 years ago; they made it to the freaking Super Bowl. So, I mean, now with Justin Fields, I can also say the same thing about Andy Dalton, but I have a feeling Andy Dalton's going to start week 1. Suck against the Rams, and then Justin Fields will be in week 2. That's my guess. And I wouldn't mind Justin Fields as a backup just because he has a lot of running ability. Because, like I said, the offensive line isn't that great, especially if Tevin Jenkins is not going to play. So he might be like scrambling out of the pocket and then running the ball a lot. I trust Justin Fields, but I thought we should have fired Matt Nagy. I don't think he's a good coach.
Yeah, so
I really don't think he's a good coach.
The thing that scares me with Justin Fields, besides the fact that he's from Ohio State and we haven't produced a quarterback worth anything, is it doesn't matter who the quarterbacks are. You saw it last year. You never knew who the quarterback was going to be, even in the middle of a game. You're like, oh, Mitch Trubisky threw an interception. Okay, he'll be out the next. No, there's Nick
Foles.
Nick Foles. Oh, Nick Foles comes in, throws an interception right away. Oh, so now they're going to bring Trubisky back in, and then you have Nick Foles for a few weeks, and then you bring him back Trubisky. So I hope, for the sake of the team, that they choose one guy. Like, if they're going to be with Andy Dalton, they're going to be with Andy Dalton. If they make that switch to Justin Fields, they stay with Justin Fields.
Absolutely, but like you might have that sense at the beginning, like who's going to be the quarterback. But once they switch to Justin Fields, it's going to be Justin Fields for the rest of the season, no matter how bad he is. Because I mean, unless I doubt it. Because I was going to say that never happens, but then Tua got benched last year, so
Tua got benched quite a few times for Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I mean, but that's, the benefit of having a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick who can just step in and
Right.
just do anything.
Because he's just been there for forever doing the same thing, so.
Here's another interesting thing. The Bears are the only franchise to not have a 4,000-yard passer. Andy Dalton's done it 4 times. Not saying he's going to do it, but Andy Dalton's actually not as bad as everyone says.
I liked
He's
the
fine.
fact that the Cowboys took him as their backup, and, I mean, he wasn't great last year. He ended up getting hurt, too, but...
I don't want Justin Fields to start against Aaron Donald for his first start. I don't. That's a recipe for disaster. So I want Andy Dalton to start week 1.
I mean, we saw how it went for Tua for his first start last year to be against Aaron Donald. So
it did work out.
Don't throw your rookie in against that defense.
They won, though.
Right away.
They won.
They had to bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick.
They didn't bring him in week 1.
No, so...
I thought the first game was against the Rams.
They didn't start Tua until after the bye week against the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
So
they
that
won
was
that
like
game.
week 6 or 7.
They won that game.
Yes, but they had to bring in Fitzpatrick too.
I know later in the season he did. I don't think it
interchanged.
was that game though. Whatever. We don't know for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I say don't start Justin Fields week 1.
I agree.
Save the man.
As a Bears fan, I agree.
Save the man. All right, so that's.
We can talk about some other. We can talk about some other.
Some other flyers if we feel like.
How do you all feel about DeAndre Swift?
Pass.
Yeah, I think Detroit's going to be a running back by committee. I think they're very high on Jamal Williams. They wouldn't have signed him if they weren't.
Well, and the Lions just are not.
Yeah, the Lions are going to be the worst team unless Deshaun Watson doesn't play.
I feel like the Lions quite possibly could go winless again. They went 0-16 in whatever year they did.
2009, I think.
This
right
might
before they got Stafford.
They might be the first 0-17 team.
Well, yeah, I think Jared Goff could end up
the
getting
Texans.
benched.
The Texans will do that. They don't have Deshaun Watson. I can guarantee you. The Texans have no redeeming qualities.
Who is their backup? Tyrod?
I have no idea.
Oh, yeah, it's Tyrod Taylor, and then they also got Davis Mills, who they drafted.
They have your boy Philip Lindsay,
who I believe at some point will become the top running back there.
Well, he got more carries than David Johnson in the first preseason game.
Yeah.
So I think
preseason.
No one's taking anyone from the Texans. Let's be real.
I might take Philip Lindsay clear at the end of the draft. Who knows?
Then we also got J.K. Dobbins on the Ravens.
Dobbins, I have ranked in the top 20.
Is Ingram there anymore?
No, he's in Houston.
So with J.K. Dobbins, he had a pretty decent year last year.
Yeah.
He was having to split with Mark Ingram when he was in there with Gus Edwards, who I believe Gus Edwards probably will still get touches at the goal line.
Sure.
I also worry Lamar
guy.
Jackson's going to steal his carries. That's the problem.
But I feel like they're going to run the ball more.
They are going to run the ball a
than
lot.
they're going to throw the ball. So, because if you could look that up real quick, he had like 800 rushing yards last year.
He came out big in the second half of the season.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like he could be a 1,000-yard rusher at some point in this season.
I think he'll get at least 1,000 yards with rushing and receiving.
Yeah, at least 1,000 all-purpose. He's a guy that I wouldn't mind taking if the price is right.
I'm not sure if this is last year or projection, but it says 805 yards again.
Sounds right.
I'm not sure if that was last year or this year's projection. Oh, it is last year.
Yeah.
805 yards, 9 touchdowns. So
9 touchdowns with 2 other running backs in the mix, and Gus Edwards getting at least.
And I think he's clearly separated himself from Gus Edwards as being the first running back.
What about the next guy I have on here is Chris Carson.
I've been burned too many times by Chris
Carson.
I had him
last year, and I
fair opinion.
I had him last year, and I was fine with him.
I was not. You never knew if he was going to play. He was always a game time decision. He'd come in and play a couple downs, and then get hurt, and then maybe come back in the game. Maybe not. Then the next week it was the same thing all over again. If he can stay healthy, he's a decent option, but
I'm not.
He's burned me one too many times for me to be like, I'll take Chris Carson.
So we already talked about Amari Cooper a little bit about the Cowboys. What about DJ Moore?
I got into a Twitter battle with somebody.
I wonder. I have a feeling Sam Darnold's going to throw. Robbie Anderson's going to be his number one, just because he had him in New York,
right?
And I think talent-wise, I think they're about the same. I think Robbie Anderson's an underrated receiver. So I think the Panthers are going to be a little bit better than most people think. So I think DJ Moore could be good. He'll have a couple of weeks where he has like 25 points, but I just don't see the consistency with DJ Moore. I mean,
I think with Curtis Samuel gone, I think he's going to be getting a lot more touches in kind of that special offensive weapon player. And I think he could break out.
There's also Christian McCaffrey. That's the other problem.
Like,
of course.
My thoughts on it are Christian McCaffrey is the top receiver for the team. Then you have Robbie Anderson.
And then he's probably number 3.
DJ Moore gets mixed in somewhere. And the past 3-4 seasons, maybe just 3 seasons, he's had 1,000 yards receiving.
Yeah.
But he hasn't ranked inside of the top 5 for a wide receiver at all. And he doesn't get all the touchdowns to, make up for that.
I would be comfortable with him as my flex.
Yeah.
Personally.
The problem is he's not. I mean, if you pick him where he's going, he'll probably be your wide receiver 2, unless. And then if you have 2 running backs, though, you probably wouldn't pick him as your wide receiver.
Where is he ranked?
He's ranked around
wide
like 30, or as wide receiver, he's around like 15 to 20.
Okay.
And overall, he's like around 40.
Okay.
Let's see if I have
a little high for
ADP
sure.
rank on him. Somewhere in here.
Because I think in most drafts he'll be picked before Robbie Anderson. In that case,
round.
I'd take Robbie Anderson.
Yeah, exactly.
Fifth round is a little high for
that's way too high for me on a guy who I'm not sure if he's going to get touchdowns.
Sure.
Myles Gaskin.
I'm passing on that. Malcolm Brown has
that's
gotten a lot of hype from the coaching staff in or the training camp, and they gave him a lot of work in the preseason.
I think aside from being a late round flyer, it's a no for me.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't bet on Myles Gaskin. He's maybe somebody I would stream later on, pick up off the waivers if you see that he becomes something.
Sure.
So what about the Jacksonville backfield?
I feel bad for James Robinson.
I absolutely do too. That was the worst pick in the entire draft. Why would they take with their second pick? Why would they take their best a player at their best position last year? It didn't make sense.
I mean, ETN's a great running back, and I think he's going to be very involved. But I just don't know where James Robinson's going to mix in, if those two are going to coexist. Like I was telling you before the show, if they can make something happen like Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, if they can make that happen in Jacksonville with those two, then I'd be okay taking either one of them.
They're just not. I don't know. They're just not good enough to do that. That's the only problem.
Well, I think, just in this league, you need to have more than one running back, unless your name is Derrick Henry or Dalvin Cook,
right.
or Christian McCaffrey. I think, I think just ETN was more of just a 5 years down the road pick for me. It obviously hurts Robinson in fantasy, but
Robinson was a rookie last year.
Sure,
that's the thing. Like, he's a young guy. I mean, I don't understand. I didn't understand the pick. I was a little upset about it, but I mean, if it works out for them and they can have 2 running backs that, they both build.
I don't think by any means. Sure, Robinson ran for 1,000 yards, but I don't think by any means he's a 3-down running back.
I don't know. They didn't really have anybody else last year. He kind of shouldered the load.
Where did he finish last year? Because he had to be in at least the top 10. He was a stud last year.
At least top 15.
Right.
I would say top 5 even, because a lot of the top running backs were hurt last year. Christian McCaffrey was hurt. Barkley was hurt. Elliott was a shell of himself.
there was a lot of names inside of the top 10 that aren't normal names inside the top 10. Either one of the guys for fantasy, I don't know.
No.
Maybe flexes.
All right, so 2 other guys that are expected to be the number 1 running back, perhaps get the majority of the workload, is Mike Davis on the Falcons and Darrell Henderson on the Rams. Who's competing with Darrell Henderson? Is there anyone? Because Cam Akers is hurt. Malcolm Brown's not there.
They didn't sign anyone.
I mean, if he's the only one there,
he's going to be the guy.
He's probably
as is Mike Davis.
Those guys are probably your best options late round,
and
they're going in the 50s, which I think is pretty. If they're going to get the majority of the workload, I think that's pretty good.
I would be comfortable going 3 wide receivers and then taking a Mike Davis as my running back 1. Especially if I can get receivers that are at least 20 points a week.
Yeah.
And he's somebody who last year, when McCaffrey was out the whole time, he was one of the top running backs throughout each week. And now he's going to an offense where they've got 2 passing options. They're going to have to run the ball. We saw Todd Gurley, even though Todd Gurley doesn't, who's Todd Gurley? We saw him rush for a bunch of touchdowns. So I feel like Mike Davis is better than Todd Gurley, and he's going to be an upgrade at that position. And he's somebody I'd be comfortable starting in either running back 1 or 2, depending on.
Mike Davis has been with every team he's been with except the Bears, of course. But he was good with the Panthers. He was solid with the Seahawks a couple years ago. So, I mean, I think that's a fine pick. And Darrell Henderson, too. I think Darrell Henderson might even be a better one because of just how the Rams' offense is going to work.
It's definitely a West Coast type of offense.
I just have a feeling. Who's the Rams' backup?
So I looked it up. Their guys are Otis Anderson, rookie. Raymond Calais, Jake Funk, and Xavier Jones.
I just have a weird feeling that one of those guys is just going to be better than Darrell Henderson. I just have a weird feeling, and it's going to be like, I don't know what's a good example of that, where just another running back came in and just took the work. Like, kind of like
James Robinson.
Yeah, but I mean, they really didn't have anyone. But kind of like when the Cardinals back in 2015 with David Johnson, they had Chris Johnson, and they also had Andre Ellington, I think.
Andre Ellington, yeah.
And David Johnson just came in and was like, "You're better. We're going to run you."
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I can think of. But I just have a feeling that's going to happen. I mean, if he's there and I need a running back, I wouldn't mind taking either of these guys because I think they're going to get most of the workload.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a fair thing to say.
We want to just keep going down the list of other guys. So we have 2 guys that are going to be their number 2 guys, Adam Thielen and Tyler Lockett. How do you feel about that?
I would be fine with Adam Thielen as maybe even wide receiver 2. A lot of people are fading on him because of his age. I don't understand why.
The dude essentially scored the touchdown.
He was force-fed the ball last year, and Justin Jefferson still did his thing. But touchdown-wise, Adam Thielen still gets touchdowns.
Yeah.
Adam Thielen is touchdowns.
Adam Thielen had 14 touchdowns compared to Justin Jefferson's 7.
Yeah,
but I mean, he also had 500 less receiving yards.
Dear Lord,
and
that cat.
14 less catches.
Oh boy.
So he had more touchdowns. He had double the touchdowns, which is surprising. But he had 400 less yards and 14 less receptions.
Yeah, but like I said, they would force feed him the ball down in the red zone.
Well, I mean, is Kyle Rudolph still there? Or
no, he's with New York.
So yeah,
but they have Irv Smith Jr., who I think could be even better than Kyle Rudolph.
Thing is with Adam Thielen, like I said, it's a tough one. I still think he could produce wide receiver 1 numbers, but the problem is the Justin Jefferson thing.
Is he touchdown dependent? Is that where he almost is sitting now?
It seems like he might be. He is 30 years old, which I guess isn't that bad. Oh wait, he's gonna be literally 31 in 4 days.
Yeah.
So that's
happy birthday.
Adam Thielen, if you're watching.
All right, so some other guys, and I think this guy's way too high. Brandon Ayuk.
I don't think he's too high.
I don't
After
know
last season, I think he's going to get that same amount. And now they know what they have with Brandon Ayuk. I think it's only going to get better for him. He's a guy that I would take at my flex position.
I don't know how I feel just about any 49ers receiver, just because they're going to be a run-heavy team, and their number 1 passing option, if he's not blocking, obviously, is George Kittle. So it's a tough one. I mean, you can go back and forth. I don't really know too much about Brandon Ayuk.
Which one would you go for, Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk?
I would probably go Deebo Samuel just because he's going to run the ball a lot. And he might get a lot of run. He might average like 50 yards, 60 yards a game.
And the thing is, last year the Niners were, you could say, run heavy, and Ayuk still had a lot of volume, and he kind of took over the Deebo Samuel spot with getting those jet sweeps, getting that quick stuff, and the kid's an athlete.
Yeah.
So I like Brandon Ayuk, to be honest, and if he's there at like a third wide receiver position or maybe even fourth, I would definitely bet on him.
You mean third round or fourth round, or wide receiver, third receiver,
wide
fourth
receiver positioning.
Okay, yeah, I would take him as my flex easily.
Yeah.
Is there any? You want to keep going through the rankings, or is there anything else you wanted to discuss?
So I've got a couple more deals we could get into. Do we want to do some hot takes or some sleepers first?
Let's do sleepers.
Sleepers?
So I have some. I'll give you my sleeper, Jamar Chase. Joe Burrow is going to. Joe Burrow wanted them to pick Jamar Chase.
So here's my thing about that. I don't think anybody's sleeping on him. I think he is hyped up way too much.
Oh really?
He's getting taken as the top Bengals receiver in the first three rounds.
First 3 rounds are ridiculous. Top Bengals receiver, I can handle. Because the thing is, he kind of just went to T. Higgins because that was his favorite target. But Jamar Chase is going to be his favorite, because he went to LSU with him. So that's my thing.
But again, for Jamar Chase to be that fantasy relevant, he's going to have to put together a season like Justin Jefferson did last year, which hadn't been done since Randy Moss. I mean, it's possible, and there's a lot of arguments that, yeah, Chase played when Jefferson played, and he was better than Jefferson. He's going in to play with Joe Burrow. When they had that, he had 2,000 receiving yards and 20 touchdowns in one season. I feel like he is super hyped up, and a lot of people are taking him as their wide receiver 1, which I wouldn't necessarily do, but I think he's going to have a good season. My top sleeper, already kind of talked about him, Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's sitting at the bottom of quarterback rankings. I mean, he's literally a guy I could pick up in the last round of every mock draft I've done. He's going into a much better situation, probably the best situation he's been in, with weapons around him, a defense to help him. I think he's going to have a really good year, and I mean, he may not be top 5, but I could see him being inside the top 10.
Yeah.
I mean, if he just gunslinger fits magic, it's possible.
You got any sleepers?
A guy I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, Irv Smith Jr. He's more of a receiving tight end than Kyle Rudolph, and I think with Rudolph out of the way, they're gonna. I almost feel like they felt obligated to play Rudolph over Irv Smith because of the contract they gave him. Now that that's all out of the way, I feel like they can make him a red zone threat.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Another guy I like really low is James White, because I think they're going to be... Mac Jones plays very conservative.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to do a lot of tosses to the running back.
When do we think Mac Jones will make it into the starting lineup?
That is the issue, though. I
feel like it would be very quick.
That is. I think it might be very quick, but it also might not be.
They were Bill Belichick was very stubborn with Cam Newton last year, even when he was just stinking it up. But you didn't have a first round quarterback there. You had Jared Stidham behind him, which, oh boy, but
I think Mac Jones is going to be a guy that out of the rookies that were taken, he could be one that we look back in 10 years and we're like, that was actually the guy.
Well, it's the perfect fit, too.
Yeah.
If he was if the Bears picked him, that would have been a terrible pick, though, because he doesn't fit with the Bears.
Right.
No.
But he fits perfectly with the Patriots.
It's kind of like when Najee Harris went to the Steelers. You couldn't have asked for a better fit. Mm-hmm. I feel like Mac Jones going to the Patriots, you couldn't have asked for anything better for him.
And what was that pick for Najee Harris? 15? Or 16, around there? Nobody else would be picking Najee Harris that high, except for Pittsburgh, because it was a perfect fit.
Yeah. And what I heard was a perfect fit and it worked out was Michael Thomas with the Saints was also a perfect fit. He's kind of like that volume receiver. He's not like a dominant guy, but it was perfect for Drew Brees at the time. Maybe, obviously, now he may not play with the Saints anymore, but that was a perfect fit as well.
What do you guys think about, speaking of the Saints, what do you think about Adam Troutman?
Oh, man, I've heard a lot about Adam Troutman. They drafted him to be that kind of guy.
Yeah.
To be somebody we're talking about. I just don't know. we haven't seen anything from him.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like-
and he was hyped all the way from the combine, and then when they drafted him, they said, "Oh, look out, the next Jimmy Graham."
Right.
And even after he didn't do anything last year, they're still saying it.
Right.
I don't know, and especially with Drew Brees gone and Jameis Winston, and I don't know.
The only person I think in the Saints, and if he follows me, is Alvin Kamara. I don't like anyone else in the Saints, really. I mean,
Yeah.
Michael Thomas?
I don't know if he's playing this year. I mean, I've picked people that there was like, oh, he could be back really early or he could be back later, and I've gotten burned on it. AJ Green a couple years ago, when they were like, oh, he could be back soon, he never came back.
I got burned as Le'Veon Bell when he did that.
Yeah.
So
you know,
if there's any chance of somebody being like, "Oh, I'm not
that's
gonna
why
play,"
I wish I knew what DeAndre Hopkins' situation was.
I would almost bet $100 that
Please.
Hopkins is playing.
Yeah, I agree. Probably about 99 to
Yeah.
1% chance. So
One other sleeper I have is Jared Cook. He's now on the Chargers, and we saw how Hunter Henry was used last year. They shipped him out, and now they have Jared Cook, who he's not ever been a flashy guy, but he could see a lot of targets.
I saw him ranked as like the 23rd tight end.
Yeah, and
like
he's
at
a
that point, absolutely.
Yeah, he's
I'm
a
taking
very
him.
high value pick.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I have no arguments. I'm just not a fan of Jared.
I mean, everywhere,
Right.
everywhere he has played, he has made a difference.
Yeah.
And like Green Bay, even the Raiders, he played well. And then obviously New Orleans is a passing offense, and with a new head coach and Justin Herbert, and the Chargers are going to be passing more than since Phillip Rivers was in his prime.
Right.
So I like Jared Cook as a sleeper.
Thank you. All right, so some hot takes for this season. We'll start with you.
Bears are making the playoffs. That's my hot take. Is that a hot take?
Yeah, that would
That's
hot garbage take is what I would
that
say.
is boiling hot.
Last year they had terrible quarterback play and made the playoffs. So
Yeah.
and they also are going to get. They're going to get probably 4 guaranteed wins against the Vikings and the Lions. I mean, not the Vikings, but definitely against the Lions.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I feel like maybe. There's a
It's still a
possibility.
good defense.
There's a good chance.
It's still a good defense.
Yeah.
Even though they don't have Kyle Fuller anymore, which does suck.
So, one of my hot takes: Alvin Kamara will not finish as the top running back in receptions, with Christian McCaffrey back this year, and Austin Eckler playing a full.
Is that even a hot take though?
I would say so.
I would
He's
say
normally
so.
projected
Well,
as the leader for receptions by running backs.
I feel like that's Christian McCaffrey's thing though.
It might be now, but any time you've talked about Alvin Kamara in fantasy relevance, it's, he catches the ball about 80 times a year. That's where all of his value sits. So I feel like it's going to be McCaffrey. He could even be the third, and maybe Austin Eckler is up there as well, in my opinion.
All right, I guess it's my turn. The offensive rookie of the year will be Devontae Smith,
I like that.
Philadelphia Eagles.
I think he's very underrated.
What do you think is the favorite right now, though, for offensive rookie? Kyle
Trevor.
Pitts?
Trevor Lawrence is probably the favorite.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah,
Or Jamar Chase.
I would
Or
say
Najee Harris.
There's a lot of options.
It's hard, yeah, because we haven't seen really anything yet.
It's usually a quarter. I mean, I feel like it's a quarter. I mean,
Most of
unless
the
you
time.
have
Yeah.
a Saquon Barkley rookie year, it's usually a quarterback. So
Right.
I would say. I mean, that's a good take. I would love to see Kyle Pitts because I don't think has it ever happened to a tight end. I can't
Oof.
remember.
That's a great question.
I would
I
love
don't-
to see
I
Kyle
don't-
Pitts winning that, but I
There's a good chance.
I think he could. I think he's probably in I think he's gonna be top 3. So
Another one I have is the combination of Justin Jefferson and Calvin Ridley will both finish inside the top 5 of wide receivers this year.
nice.
Say those
I like
names
that.
again?
I like that too.
Justin Jefferson and Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
I feel like Calvin Ridley was top 5 last year.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson, I feel like they're going to give him a bigger role because of what he did last season. And if they do kind of fade off of Adam Thielen a bit, I feel like there's very good chances that they both are inside the top 5. My only question would be who would drop out of the top 5. Like, who would be the top 5 if those two are involved?
Obviously there's injury. There's chances of all 6 of the top 6 running backs staying healthy is probably low. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I like that one. Oh, wait. We're talking about wide receivers. My bad.
Because I feel like Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill are going to be 1 and 2.
I mean, here's a hot take. Stephon Diggs is not going to finish the top 10 wide receiver because he never does well when he goes in with an injury. I'm staying away from Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, and they also have Emmanuel Sanders now, too.
And if Cole Beasley still plays?
Yeah, and if Cole Beasley and who else did they? Gabriel Davis they still have, who found
and
himself getting a lot of targets.
Who's that tight end that's incredible with, like, stiff arms or something? I forgot his name.
So,
on the Bills.
Dawson Knox?
Yes, Dawson Knox. Yeah, that man is, like, the best stiff armor in the league.
Yeah.
Maybe after Derrick Henry. Who else? What else are some hot picks? If DeAndre Hopkins plays, I think he's going to finish as the number 1 wide receiver.
I just
don't know if he's gonna. I just don't know how he's gonna be, like, mentally. It does worry me. I usually try to avoid people with, like, conflicts, but I just think the combination is just gonna get better year 2.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I have one more hot take. Travis Kelce's gonna break his record again.
I could see that. I mean,
I think he's just gonna get better.
He's got plenty of time to do it. He's got an extra game.
Yo, yeah, I even think about that.
What are some records that you think might fall this year with an extra game?
I think the reception
record.
Did Michael Thomas have the record
in
right?
2019?
Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, so the only question is who. I feel like Devontae Adams is probably the favorite, but Aaron Rodgers loves spreading that ball around.
I think the passing yards one will break.
Passing yards?
I think it's like 5,500. I think Peyton Manning back in 2013. I don't think his touchdowns will be breaking for a while.
You don't think somebody will get to 55?
No, I mean, Patrick Mahomes had 50 3 years ago, and he was ridiculous. But I do think the passing yards will be breaking. Because I also just think that there's a lot of just like running the ball into the end zone kind of mindset, but pass the ball when you get there. So I would say I could see someone like Dak Prescott breaking it. I can see Patrick Mahomes obviously breaking it. I could even see Aaron Rodgers breaking it. I can see Tom Brady breaking it.
I could see Josh Allen breaking that.
I think with Josh Allen, though, I just think he runs the ball too much, though that would take away from his passing yards. I would say if someone's going to break it, it would be Dak Prescott or Patrick Mahomes.
What about the rushing yards and rushing touchdown records?
I don't think
you got Eric Dickerson at 21 something, so 2,100 yards or something like that, and then you got 21 touchdowns by LaDainian Thomas.
I think 29.
I think 30. I thought it was 31.
I thought it was close to 30.
I know total touchdowns with his receiving touchdowns was like 30.
Oh. Nobody's touching the rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, no one's gonna. Yeah.
And what Derrick Henry got 2,000 last year.
How many people have duplicated 2,000-yard seasons?
Back to back, you mean?
I don't know if anybody has.
Did Dickerson not have that? If anybody, it's him.
Because I know that there's only been 5 or 6.
Actually, I think OJ may have done back to back.
Maybe. Yeah. That's just something interesting to think about with an extra game.
Yeah, that's
what can happen.
Boy, it's gonna be weird just looking at the records.
28 touchdowns in 2006.
28.
But yeah, I don't think we're ever gonna see a rushing record be broken again. There's just not a lot of rushing now.
Yeah, and the only person I can think of that would do it is Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Just because of how that offense is shaped around him. But
yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps it up, I would say.
Alrighty.
You want to do a final playoff prediction?
Playoff prediction. Okay.
So
we got 7 teams each side?
Yeah, and then the division. So we'll start with the National League. I'll do my prediction because I've been preparing for this one. So
okay.
So the National League West, I'm gonna go with the Rams. I just feel like the Seahawks are always really bad down the stretch. So I'm gonna go with the Rams, and I'm gonna go with the Seahawks and get one of the wild card spots. For the North, I'm still gonna go with your Packers. Okay. I think the Bears will get the other wild card. I think the East will actually be the Giants instead of the football team. Obviously, the South is going to be the Buccaneers, but I also think the last wild card, I'm going to bet on the Panthers, and the Panthers are going to be really good.
Wow.
And then I'll let you guys do the NFC.
Hang on, I gotta.
I want to have them in front of my face.
I know it's a kind of a hot take to say not the 49ers, but they were so bad last year, and I know they had a lot of injuries, but I don't know how I feel about them.
So for the West, the NFC West, that's so tough because like all of those teams I feel like are kind of in the same spot talent wise. The 49ers the 49ers are going to be healthy this year, which is something they weren't last year. I'd probably say the Seahawks would win that division. I think the Buccaneers pretty easily win the South. I think the Cowboys at full strength take the NFC East. Not easily, but by more than one game. Then the Packers. And then when you got 3 wild card teams, I'd probably go with any of the 3 remaining from the NFC West. Probably 2 of them will take up 2 of those spots. And then maybe the Bears or Vikings. Is it
calling my hot take a trash hot take, and you're picking on yourselves?
I mean, there's just.
I do think
I don't see more than one
NFC. I think the NFC East will be better. I think football team's gonna be good. I think the Giants are gonna be good. I think the Cowboys are gonna be good. I think the South is gonna be bad. I think the Saints and the Falcons aren't gonna be good, and obviously the Lions are trash.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think the Eagles, Lions, and the Falcons are gonna be the only bad teams in the NFC this year.
Okay.
Maybe the Vikings will be bad. Maybe the Saints will be bad. Maybe another one of those NFC East teams will be bad. But there's not going to be a lot of bad teams in the NFC this year.
I feel like if the Vikings defense is decent, that offense has a chance. I don't like Kirk Cousins, but they've got Dalvin Cook and they have 2 really good receiving options, maybe 3. So that offense could be pretty decent this year.
What about you?
All right. So the West, I'll go Seahawks. I just think they're the safe team in that division. The North, I'm gonna go Packers. The NFC East, I'm gonna go Cowboys. You know, barring Dak Prescott stays healthy, and then the South Buccaneers. And then my wild cards are the Cardinals, the Rams, and the Vikings.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now I'll give you my AFC picks. So the AFC East, I'm obviously going to go with the Bills. I don't see how they're going to lose that. I mean, I guess I can see, but they're really good. Obviously, the West, I'm going to go with the Chiefs. And the North, I'm going to go with the Browns because I think the Browns are the best team in the North. And then the South, I feel like the South is clearly the weakest in the AFC.
Yeah.
Yes.
I am going to go with the Titans. Yeah. Although I do think the Colts have the best roster, but I'm just going to go with the Titans.
I just don't like the Colts quarterback situation.
Exactly. And for the wild cards, I'm going to go with the Ravens, and I'm going to go with the Patriots, and I'm going to go with the Dolphins.
Interesting.
Nice.
Maybe the Chargers, I want to say the Chargers, but I just feel like, I don't know, with a new coach, I don't know if it's going to work right away. I do think the Chargers are close. The Chargers I'm close with, but I think I definitely think the Patriots are going to take a big step up this year, not just because of the quarterback, but they added a lot of different people, so that's my pick. And I like the Dolphins a lot.
With the Patriots, offensively, I don't see where the weapons are. They added 2 good tight ends, which makes me think they're going to just run the ball a lot. And if they're throwing to anybody, it's going to be the 2 tight ends. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out. For the South, it's pretty easy for me. The Titans are going to take it because I don't like the Colts quarterback situation. The Texans probably not going to have Deshaun Watson. And then the Jaguars, who knows. The Bills will pretty easily take the East. I would say probably the Ravens in the North.
That's a tough one. Ravens or Browns. I don't think the Steelers are going to be that good.
Yeah, I don't trust Big Ben to be decent enough. And then pretty easily the Chiefs. For me, the wild cards, the Browns. I might even say the Raiders. They were 500 last year. They
finished strong.
They're kind of the same with the Chargers, kind of right on that edge. And then the third, that's tough. If Tua takes that step up, I think the Dolphins.
I just think Tua only has to be fine, because I think they just have a really good team. Beyond
they've got a lot of talent. It's just got to mesh. It's all got to come together. So I feel like if it comes together, they'll be competitive and they'll be the 6 or 7 seed, in my opinion.
All right. So for the East, the Buffalo Bills. The North, I'll go the Browns. The West, Chiefs, and the South, the Titans. My 3 wild cards are the Ravens, Chargers, and Steelers.
Still think the Steelers.
I think they still have a solid team. I think Big Ben is good enough to bring them to the playoffs.
They've got a good defense.
Yeah.
And the thing with the AFC, again with the NFC, outside of the Jets, Jaguars, and Texans, I can see any teams making the playoffs. Even your Broncos, I think they're fine. They're fine enough to sneak into the playoffs.
I feel like my Broncos have maybe one more year of bringing everything together. If we stick with Drew Lock and Drew Lock starts progressing. If not, then I don't know when the next time the Broncos will make it. Yeah.
So anything else?
Too early to predict Super Bowl.
I can't not pick the Buccaneers, because the only other team I would say making the playoff or making the Super Bowl is the Packers, and as a Bears fan, I can't do that.
Well,
I'm gonna go Bills over Buccaneers. Maybe I'm being a little biased. I'm a big fan of Josh Allen, so that's what I'm gonna go.
So Bills over the Buccaneers?
Yeah. Although I don't know, man. I just don't know how Josh Allen would. I can't, in the Super Bowl, I can't actually pick Josh Allen over Tom Brady. I understand the age, but I think Josh Allen will win a Super Bowl. I don't know if it's yet. I'm going to change my pick. I'm going to go. Come back to me. Let me think about it.
Okay.
Let me think about this one. It's a tough one.
For NFC, I see, like you said, 2 teams maybe being there. I think. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think the Packers finally jump over that hump.
Right.
I think the Packers finally get over the hump. They've got a happy Aaron Rodgers now. They're giving him...
Is he happy?
I think so. They let him bring in Randall Cobb. That was his big thing. And then AFC... man, I feel very stupid saying this. But I think it'll be the Browns and Chiefs. I think the Browns are on.
I'm down between the Bills, Chiefs, and Browns.
I feel like the Browns have more overall talent than the Bills. But I don't see the Browns beating the Chiefs. The Chiefs' offensive line is now fully replenished. They didn't have their top guy last year because he was on the front lines doing COVID work. But they have him back this year. They went out and signed a few other guys. So their offensive line is going to be more solid. Patrick Mahomes isn't going to have to do what he did in the Super Bowl. So I think Chiefs and Packers. I feel dumb choosing the Packers, but I feel like the Packers.
All right.
I think this is going to be the year that they get it all together and they make that final push at the end of the season.
That would be amazing. But I don't have as much faith as you do.
Even as a fan, yeah.
No, I've been burned too many times with the Packers. But for the AFC, I think the Bills and Browns are great, but I just don't see anybody beating the Chiefs in the playoffs. And then the NFC, I'm not picking the Packers, but I think coming out of the wild card, I like the Arizona Cardinals.
Wow, that's a hot take.
You think they'd make that big of a jump?
I think they could. I think Kyler Murray has, showed significant improvement from year 2 to year 1, and I think he can again with year 3. and I
especially if he stays healthy this season, because he was banged up a bit at the end of the season last year.
And I love that Cliff Kingsbury offense, but some needs to step up at running back. I don't know if Chase Edmonds is the guy. I don't think James Conner is either, but they need something to happen there. Yeah. But then I'm gonna pick the Chiefs over the Cardinals in the Super Bowl.
That's a very hot take. I am going to actually go. I'm going to go the Buccaneers over the Browns because I think Baker Mayfield's really good in the clutch. Right, and I think with the addition of, what's his face, from the Texans and the Titans, Clowney, and Clowney, I think that's going to be a little extra oomph. I really hope this is the year that he's actually good with Baker Mayfield on the field because he clearly is better with him off the field.
Odell.
Yeah, so I just love their offensive line. I love their running game, and I love their defense. I think they have everything that a Super Bowl team wants. They got a really good running game and a really good defense, and they got a quarterback that's actually really good in the clutch.
Yeah.
He's if you don't think he's good in the clutch, go watch the game against Georgia. He was freaking fantastic, and his defense just let him down.
Yeah.
And also, they almost beat the Chiefs last year, so.
Yeah, I like the Browns, too. I don't know if
I think it's coming down
to where they can make that push.
I think it's going to come down to the Bills, Browns, and Chiefs. The only other team I can see stopping that would be the Ravens, but Lamar Jackson is the opposite of Mayfield. He's not good in the clutch.
Cannot get it done in the playoffs.
If Carson Wentz is good, the Colts have a really good team. So
we've been waiting.
I know.
How many years has Carson Wentz been in the?
Exactly.
And we've been waiting the whole time.
The thing I think if he wasn't good that year before he got injured in 2017, we wouldn't be waiting. Yeah. We'd be like, all right, he's done. The problem is we saw how much potential he has.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I feel like it's already drained from all of the injuries, all of the seasons not playing.
And the NFC, I don't see a team stopping the Buccaneers. I guess the Packers. The Buccaneers are just stacked. They literally have everyone brought back from their Super Bowl team.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
and another team I can see is the Rams because I think the Rams have a really good defense, but we haven't seen Matt Stafford on a really good team yet. So maybe next year the Rams could be up there. But the Rams have a really nice situation where they have a stud defensive lineman and a stud cornerback, which I think is the two things you need. So
and I've thought for quite a few years that's been the toughest division. Because they're all competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of just, to me, a coin flip who comes out of that division on top. And I feel like whoever does is going to make that push through the playoffs. All right. That's it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Go follow all of the socials. You can follow Ben at I am Ben Burns on Twitter. Jacob,
meteorologist Jacob Montesano. That's right. I'm a meteorologist on Facebook. So
follow him there. And then all of my socials will be right now. We'll put those down. And again, if you are listening to the show podcast form, you can watch it on YouTube. If you're watching it here on YouTube and you'd just rather listen, you can go over to I've got links in my Twitter and my Facebook, so you can go to those, find where the podcasts are. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you again right before week 1. Have a great day. Thanks for joining.
Peace.